The mayor's office and all 10 city council seats are on the May 6th ballot, but Proposition A is expected to be the real draw for San Antonio voters.
Yeah, you've probably seen the commercials. The proposed change to the city charter covers marijuana, abortion, chokeholds, and cite and release. City Hall reporter Garrett Berger takes us through it.
Would you like to sign a petition to get the decriminalization of marijuana on the ballot so people aren't arrested for possessing low-level amounts?
Oh, yeah.
More than 20,000 verified signatures got the so-called San Antonio Justice Charter onto the May ballot as Proposition A. At first, the push was largely dominated by talk of decriminalizing marijuana. Prop A would attempt to prevent arrests or citations in most cases for possessing less than 4 ounces of pot, and would keep police from using its smell as probable cause for a search. 6 other Texas cities have passed similar initiatives, but they've split on whether or not they've actually followed through. Prop A also appears to be the first attempt in the state to decriminalize abortion with a local ballot initiative. It would largely prohibit police from investigating abortion crimes and forbid the city from gathering information on any abortions or passing that info on to other government agencies, apart from what's required in state or federal law. One of the most controversial parts of the proposition is the expansion of cite and release. The city already has a program that allows officers to cite people for certain misdemeanors instead of arresting them. They'd still face a charge, but the DA's office then decides whether to let the cited person into a diversion program that could keep the offense off their record. Although prosecutors can also decide to charge them as normal through the court system. The SAPD's cite and release program includes most of the things allowed under state law, except graffiti and thefts from individuals. So pot possession, vandalism worth up to $750, or theft from a store for the same amount already might not result in an arrest. But officers now have some discretion whether to cite or arrest someone, whereas Prop A would require they cite people in most cases. That includes for graffiti. The mandate also extends to Class C misdemeanors except public intoxication. Those are the lowest level crimes that officers already typically just issue citations for. Prop A also tackles some other existing issues. SAPD policy bans chokeholds and no-knock warrants, but supporters want them put in stone in the city charter. They also want a new position called the Justice Director, who would essentially serve as a full-time policy analyst for city issues related to policing. They would have to submit reports ahead of key policy decisions and could not be a former cop. You can read more about what Prop A includes and its full language on our website, ksat.com.
Garrett Berger joins us now here in the studio to break some of this down even further. A lot of issues in Prop A, but there seems to be one that kind of looms over everything. Whether any of this is actually enforceable were it to pass. We've heard from the city attorney. He said, no, it's not. So what's the clear line on there, or is there one?
There's definitely not a clear line. So as you mentioned, City Attorney Andy Segovia has said that most of Proposition A, about 5 out of the 6 measures in here, would be unenforceable. The only one he says would work is the Justice Director. Everything else, he says, is pretty much preempted by state law. So you couldn't enforce it without going against state law and basically saying, we can't enforce it, we won't. On the other side, supporters have essentially said that they believe these are enforceable, and maybe there will be a legal challenge, but in that case, it's the city's responsibility to follow the will of the voters and maybe fight that in court, but basically to follow the political will. And of course, we have seen some other cases where some of this has popped up, such as marijuana decriminalization in other cities, and that's been split. And supporters again say that's based on who has the political will to actually push it through.
You know, Garrett, there's a lot of questions about cite and release.
Right.
And right now the city has, the DA's office has a cite and release program, the police department, Bexar County. But it doesn't, cite and release doesn't necessarily mean you won't be punished. It just means you won't be arrested. So talk about that a little bit more.
Right. So if you commit a crime, or if you are accused of a crime, generally you're going to be cuffed, you're going to be taken to jail, you're going to have to get out on bond while it's making its way through the court.
Right.
But you're still facing an ultimate charge. The actual punishment is at the end of that court case. You're either going to be convicted and have to face maybe some jail time or a fine. It's just that initial arrest where cite and release allows you to avoid that. Instead of getting cuffed and brought to the jail where you have to call your mom to bail you out of jail. You don't have to worry about a bond. You don't actually get arrested, but you're still facing that charge. But there is an element in the DA's program where there's a diversion element. They want people who are given
Charging
citations,
some of these things, right.
if they're given citations instead of arrested, they want there to be a chance to keep that off your record. But not everybody gets in that track, and it's the DA's office that's actually going to determine if you can get in what they have a diversion program.
Right.
And if not,
and that's
you're still
current. That has
correct.
nothing to do with Proposition
Exactly.
A. Now, I will say, if you're a business owner, it's probably a little disconcerting if you have somebody shoplift from you and they aren't going to jail.
And they're
given a ticket.
That's, I think, the big thing. A lot of business owners don't like that idea. If you come into their store and you take something out with you, they want to see you leave in cuffs. They don't want to see you handed a piece of paper. And I think that's a big portion of it. And actually, right now, theft cases are one of the most common uses for cite and release. But the cite and release expansion also allows for graffiti citations. And that's one thing SAPD has deliberately stayed away from, because no business owner likes graffiti. There would be some exceptions on what's covered. Like if it's a school or a church, you're probably not getting cited for that. That's carved out in a different state law. But it's the theft and the graffiti that really, I think, grind the gears of a lot of people in the business community.
Well, and that's what the mayor has cited as why he changed his mind and decided to take a position against Prop A.
Well, I don't think he'd say he's changed his mind. He is for cite and release, but again, the thing we hear from him, and it's a common refrain that we hear from other opponents, is that right now officers have discretion. So they have exactly, these are citable offenses, and they can issue a citation if in their judgment that's the best way to go about it. Under Prop A, they would have to, in most cases, if it's a citable offense. And there are some exceptions in there, but for the most part, you shall issue a citation, and they still have to make their way through, as we talked about earlier, you still have to go through the court system or the DA's diversion program, but that's going to be on the DA's side.
Yeah.
And even if they cite everybody, it's not clear if that means we're going to have a whole bunch of people going through the diversion or not.
So cite and release, it's an option right now, but
Correct.
this Prop A would make it the only option.
For the most part, yeah. There are some things like, I believe there's an exemption carved out if they don't have ID. But even then, they try to make a workaround in it. But the idea in Prop A is they want citations issued rather than arrests for these particular misdemeanors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different issues in Prop A. They're all very different and unique in their own right. Of course, they all have to do with policing, right? We saw some challenges to try to get it broken up into different propositions. That failed, didn't go anywhere. We haven't seen anything like this in other Texas cities.
No.
And you've been taking a look around the state where something like this has passed with so many different elements in it.
Right. Not on this scale. For example, if you look here, this is most of this, and it's about, I think, 13 pages or so, is the actual change to the city charter. There's 6 different elements lumped in here. It's essentially everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that opponents have pointed out. They say these should be separate. And as you mentioned, there was an attempt to try to force the city to separate these out into separate charter amendments. That did not go anywhere. It will appear as one all or nothing charter amendment. But we've seen in other cities pass marijuana decriminalization. In Austin, that marijuana decriminalization was paired with the no-knock warrant ban. But we haven't seen abortion, marijuana, cite and release, and chokeholds, and search warrants all bundled up into the same thing. This is unique in that regard.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of time to get through it, but luckily you and our digital team have broken it down. It's online right now. If you want to learn more about Proposition A, I, of course, urge you to do that, because obviously it's going to be the voters who make the decision on this whole thing. So we have an elections homepage where we break down everything that you're going to find on the ballot May 6th, including Prop A. Garrett Berger, appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you in the newsroom.
See you there.
We'll be right back.
Keep up to date with all of San Antonio's top news, weather, and so much more by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. And once again, thanks for watching KSAT.